And this tile. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Expert AMA live stream. We're jumping in here and we're going to get rolling here. Actually, Tran, could you post to the events channel that we're live, and then we can get some more people in here. I'm going to close this live stream dialogue. Okay, cool. So welcome today. So we're going to go on a little adventure. My name is Sam. I'm a board member here with Techlahoma, and welcome to the Techlahoma Expert AMA. So a little bit about the format of how this is going to work today. We've got two sources of questions. So one is the preloaded questions that people voted on in Slack to be asked, and the live questions. So we'll ask live here on the call. So framing today a little bit the conversation we're having. So when I first started on as a board member, one of my goals was just to expose and recognize and connect all of just the world-class talent we have in Oklahoma that people don't even realize. We got NVIDIA, people from Microsoft, people from Google, people from Facebook, right next door to us in our neighborhoods. We just don't know it. You just have to talk to people. And so one of my goals, and that was to really start to connect and build this community and bridge more points where we can learn about who we have as neighbors. To that end, we're going to celebrate some world-class talent, and specifically Jordan, who is building some bleeding edge stuff for companies right now, and frontier bands. So a little bit about Jordan. So why are we talking to him today? He is a digital brands expert. He is an Oklahoman who came up through some local organizations such as Hampton Creative, and now works for some of the best brands in the world. Now, then I say well, what's best brands in the world? What does that mean? So Jordan's a partner at Design Business Company, and recently Design Business Company actually finished a rebuild of the Claude.com, as in not in some other the Anthropic Claude that everybody uses. The kind of official number 2 AI next to OpenAI, and in a lot of ways surpasses OpenAI on some metrics. So when we found this out as Techlahoma, it was a big deal. It was this is what we're all about. We want to celebrate the Oklahoma talent that's driving, and if these brands are pulling in people, we want to make sure we recognize that. But this isn't the only thing Jordan's done. He's also led creative for the official GitHub shop, and it was so good that Figma profiled it and did a cool interview in format of it. You can check it out online. He's also worked on brands such as Amazon, Nike, Google, Patagonia, Sonos, and countless others. Also, he's a coder, and he is the author of the beloved Egstad Detect Scroll library. You can check out on NPM or do a Google search for. So with that said, say hi to Jordan Egstad.
Hey.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I moved back to Oklahoma about 3 years ago. It's cool to be here. I didn't know this was a thing until Sam, you originally reached out to me. So thanks again for having me. Looking forward to talking shop with y'all.
Yeah, I love that. So just rolling into it, I did have a first. I'm going to be a little bit selfish here. I have a first question I'm going to ask here. So you do creative. You do you do a lot of creative direction, a lot of leading of creative projects, but you hand code front end interfaces. So I had a little bit of a nerd out question with you. What is your favorite animation easing algorithm? So when you're building animations, you can't just do the linear timing. You got to do the smooth and buttery animation. So what is your favorite algorithm, mathematical formula algorithm for the animation timing?
Yeah, deep cut question. Appreciate that. Okay, so I have one that I use often, and my little default bootstrap that I use for every project that I spin up. But it is a custom Bezier curve function, so I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but just a good default. I prefer ease out over ease in out. Maybe that's a hot take.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And I feel ease out is still a good go-to. Mine is ease out Quint specifically. But I
There
haven't.
you go.
I found a few. I found one on Stripe's
Mhm.
website the other day that I saved somewhere. That was really nice. But
Yeah, deep
I
cut
haven't made an
question.
actual custom one yet. But I like that a lot. So getting into the preloaded questions from Techloma Slack. Uh,
Mhm.
the first one is, what's different about building for frontier brands like Anthropic versus other global brands? So like we have the and I mean there's nothing normal about them, but like normal brands like Nike and like you
Mhm.
feel like you see those names, especially in agency work. What is different about building for Anthropic and Claude.com specifically?
Yeah. Well, for I would say mature brands like the ones you listed, like the Amazons, Nikes, Metas, Apples, etc. They're established. They don't really have as much to prove, but these new up and coming companies like Anthropics, they have a lot to prove. And in fact,
Mm.
they really have to help shape a worldview around a new technology or an emerging technology. Um, so it's interesting to serve a company that is both kind of like a little bit punk rock and also very nerdy punk rock, and that there's not really a template for these brands to follow. And that's why you see these different AI companies taking very different paths, very different strategies. Like OpenAI is in some ways kind of shooting from the hip. They're building browsers and video generating tools and all sorts of things, whereas a company like Anthropic is pretty laser focused on AI research and also building large language models. Um, but I think that's probably the biggest distinction that comes to my mind is they have to be a little bit punk rock, but also very educational. Whereas these other brands like the Apples and the Nikes, they are what they are. And they at one point had something to prove, but they've proven themselves. They're in the world and their problems are a little bit different now than they used to be. I think that's how I would distill that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot. So they're a big name, but they still have a lot to prove. They have a lot of trust to build. They don't have as much trust as still they don't have as much of a reputation as Google. Google can have a bad reputation or a good reputation depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
They
Right.
have they have to they got to still got to get established a bit more.
Yeah. And right now, at least, because America especially has really gone all in on AI for better and worse. That's a
Yeah,
conversation we could all have over a couple beers. Um, all eyes are on these companies,
yeah,
and I mean, a lot of our money is invested in these companies now. Again, for better and worse. But
that's good. If you guys are just as a reminder, I think I forgot to mention this. If you guys can load up your questions for live questions into the chat here in the call, and then we'll go down the list. And so what the next preloaded question we have from Slack was, if I don't already have a established creative coding career, how can I grow to get to grow myself and my skills and maybe some of my soft skills to be able to get work and work with brands like Anthropic?
yeah, okay. I'm not huge on advice, but I'll tell you what I did and what I learned for good and bad, and you can learn from my mistakes and hopefully a few good decisions. Um, a little bit of context. I I dropped out of college pretty young. This is going to lead somewhere, I promise. Somebody broke into my dorm and stole everything. Like this was before backups were in the cloud, so I lost my backup hard drives, my computer, my instruments, anything that could plug into a wall. They stole. I even like the clapper that turned on our shitty little dorm room lights.
Oh my
They stole the clapper. Um, and so I really had to start over. I dropped out of college. I didn't go back, and I spent a lot of time reading and learning on the web the old-fashioned way. You know, obviously we didn't have LLMs to help us build things, let alone answer questions so directly. So you really just had to kind of struggle your way through, which actually is, for me, my favorite way of learning. As unpleasant as that sounds, I really enjoy it. I think where I went from being a sort of a stupid, jobless child to eventually getting a job and getting my foot in the door, it was because I started just sharing what I was learning and what I was doing publicly. And it wasn't just a matter of, hey, I made this, here's a link to it. It was, hey, these are some thoughts that I had. I took those thoughts and I had an hypothesis, and then I built this thing with it, and now I'm using it. And sort of like, you know, in middle school and high school, when you tried to cheat on your math homework and you would just like write the answer, and the teacher was always like, no, you got to show your work, show me your thinking. You almost have to treat social media like your math teacher in that way. There are people that are looking and they're watching, and especially if you're taking time to follow people that you work with, follow your bosses, follow your colleagues at work, etc. If you put it on the radar that you're actively thinking and working just because you're passionate and curious and devoted to this thing, it will pay dividends. I honestly think that's what really leveled me up time and again, was every now and again a boss or a peer would be like, hey, I saw this thing that you did. That actually would be great on this project that we're working on over here for this company or that company. So I'm a big proponent of share your work, be generous with it. Don't be dogmatic. Don't be the toxic designer or developers that are on Twitter that are just, you know, being rude to everybody and talking down to people's work. Spend time building people up and admiring what they're doing right. And I think a combination of that and yourself just being generous and sharing goes a really long way.
I like that. That's I know there's a trend of like work in public. Like people really love to talk about, and just like doing something, but also just like exposing yourself and being a little bit vulnerable about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes a long way. At least it did for me. But it also varies. It depends on what you're doing. You know, like that may not be the same for like a project manager, or a producer. It might be a different path. But for a designer and a developer, that model really benefited me.
Yeah. Well, no, even for project managers, is just more of like, here's my special format for PRDs.
Yeah.
I have this like special questionnaire that like helps the team get to like a better quality PRD, and they get the answers shaken out. I like that.
We love a good PRD.
All right. Chuck, you got a question. You got two questions. You want to start?
Hey, Chuck.
Hey, Jordan. Good to see you, man.
Nice to see you.
I can ask the question, or you can read it. I don't care.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Read it. I didn't have it open.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if like Sam was going to pull up the chat. So I'm curious. The first one's just kind of a fun one. Is what's the most referenced project of yours when you get new clients? Which I always like asking because I'm always pleasantly surprised as an independent like freelancer, like what people come to me and like what they see, and I'm like, that's shocking that like that caught your attention, like just in my mind.
Yeah.
But what does that look like for DVC?
Yeah, that's a good question. I appreciate that. Two came to mind. For years, the project that people would be like, oh, we saw this and we wanted to give you a call. It was, I want to say it was probably in 2018 or 2019. I was working at an agency in Portland, Oregon by the name of Instrument, and I was there for about 8 years. And I was in charge for a period of the brand team, which was basically in charge of branding, but also the instrument brand itself. We had a client project for Sonos, and we did an update to their brand and then their website. And that was probably like the number one thing that people would hit me up and talk about for a while was the Sonos.com experience. But now, over the last couple of years, I would say it's something we got hired to do for the Paris Olympics for Nike. They were having an event at Center Pompidou, that gorgeous building. And they reached out to me because I had worked actually on the topic of sharing your work publicly. This is actually a perfect example of it. I was actively working in a piece of software called Touch Designer, which maybe some of you are familiar with. It's sort of like a node-based way of synthesizing or modulating video, but also audio. You can do all sorts of things. And odds are, if you go to like an amazing live show and you're like, wow, the visuals back there that like incorporated the music with visual, whatever, they're using Touch Designer more than likely. But you can use it in all sorts of applications. And so one day I was out taking a walk in my park and I had a camera and I just was taking pictures of things. And I thought, well, what if I took these pictures and used them as like little pixels to create other images? Almost like that picture of like Bob Marley, where it's like thousands of pictures, like a mosaic of Bob Marley, but there are thousands of pictures of Bob Marley. It's very meta. but I took that and I animated it in a couple of ways, and some folks at Nike randomly saw it and they were like, we would love to bring you on to do that for us, for an event we're hosting in Paris. And so that's caught some eyeballs in a way I didn't really expect. That just was a personal project I did for the smell of it, because I just was curious and was having fun. But one thing leads to another. So that's what comes to mind.
That's incredible. And to like stay on that real quick for a second, is you're saying that, I'm curious, like, when did that skill come to you? Did that come to you in your passion and in your free time? Was that something that you like hovered around maybe in a client project and like you took personal time to go deeper? Because it seems like there's a connect to like, you didn't have that skill, upskilled, learned a new software, learned something new, took personal time to do it, and then that immediately opened another door. I'm curious like about that timeline for you.
Yeah, you're right. The stork doesn't randomly drop off skills to us randomly one day, do they? That'd be nice. I wish you could just like order a skill.
I need motion design dropped into me right now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Pretend like you're Neo in the Matrix, just getting wired in. I was curious about it. I think one day I went to a show and I was like, I wonder what they use. After doing some light Google searching, I realized, okay, that's probably this. And I had been familiar with sort of these node-based networks before, using like a Max MSP back in the day, which I dabbled in because I heard that Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead used that to create all sorts of weird things. And so, yeah, I'm always kind of tinkering. If there's a new piece of technology that comes out, I kind of just want to know. And I'm not necessarily good at it. I'm probably awful at it for a long time, but you don't have to be good at something to make something meaningful. You just need to know enough to be dangerous. And if you come to it and you have a creative idea, even if you express it crudely, you might find something that connects to other people, or maybe it has the power to connect to other people in some way or another. So when it comes to learning things like that, I would never consider myself an expert of these technologies, but just somebody who's actively learning and experimenting within them.
Yeah, an expert experimenter. It's like, like someone in a lab, it's like you don't have to know how every molecule works, but just have to be the one brave enough to throw them all together.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. I think that's right.
I have another question in the chat, but Sam, we can do whatever you want. If you have another one, and
go. Cool. I got some follow-ups, but I want to hear your next question first.
Cool. It's so kind of thinking about all the web projects that you guys do specifically, and the complexity and the code obviously behind them. I'm curious how you think about creativity and thinking outside the box and rule breaking in the same headspace as brand guidelines, identity guidelines, and regulations for webs and accessibility standards. These things that like everyone wants to follow and be the best at, and obviously be compliant. But then you sometimes don't take enough, swings at the plate, or you don't take enough risks because you're always thinking about those things. So how have you guys balance those?
That's a great question. I'll do my best to answer it, though that's a question I'd love to think on and get back to.
Sorry, that's a long question. Yeah.
No,
maybe a blog post.
I'll try and break it down a little bit. I think right from the get-go with every project, and this might sound counterintuitive, but it's just my process and it's just how I work. I do my best to not look at what their competitors are doing. I actually try my best to stay off of social media as much as possible and not look at other people's work, because oftentimes, and maybe people here you can relate, if you spend so much time looking at how something is done in an industry or in a category of work, whatever, you fall into those same sort of pitfalls. You start thinking about design in the same sort of way. And so what I like to do early on as a project is find a concept that can kind of ground me to the work in some way. And I like for those concepts to have nothing to do with screens or the digital world. I like them to be a part of our physical one. So Like, for example, with Claude, it was kind of tricky because we knew, gosh, this is a very technical product, obviously, built by this huge team of researchers. What do we do here? What's sort of a red thread that we can weave through all of this work? Something that these other AI companies aren't doing. And the thing that came to our mind was, well, research in particular. Let's start just by going to the library and looking at books. And along the way, we started finding all sorts of like scribbles and notes and like the little margins of pages, drawings. There's a term for it called marginalia. And we got really inspired by that idea of marginalia, and how marginalia in a way is us adding more context, more information. Maybe it's an aha moment. Maybe it's a random aside, like get groceries later after I drop off my kid, or whatever it might be. But in some way or another, more often than not, it was enriching the information that was on the page, which is something that Claude does really well. You give it information, and through its tapestry of knowledge, it can enrich what you give it. And so trying to find motifs or concepts like that you can return to and come back to and pull inspiration from while you're building out new features or new pages or whatever, it's really helpful, because you'll find that you don't have to think about breaking the rules, because you're writing your own path, you're doing your own thing, and you're kind of following your own intuition, which I think is kind of a freeing thing. You're not bound by what other people are doing. You're just trying to get to the truth of what this idea is and how it can be expressed, if that makes sense. So I think that's something that we do early and often in any project, is we try and find like those core concepts that we can come back to time and again and draw from like a well. You asked also questions around like accessibility and sort of things like that. Right from the get-go, we create a lot of tools to help us do or satisfy certain standards, like accessibility standards. Like we've created a custom color palette tool that helps us generate what's called perceptually uniform color pairings. RGB and CMYK, for example, these are color spaces designed not for the human eye. They're designed for technical limitations, print, and then pixels. But this is a color space that actually is designed for the way humans see color by value. And I can nerd out about that some other time, but we'll create a lot of tools along the way to just help us do that without having to think about it so much. But obviously, we do have to think about it. There is quality control. But yeah, I hope that colors a little bit of what you asked. I'm sure that I probably missed a couple of things in there, Chuck.
No, I think you expanded on it more than I was even perceiving in the question. So that's excellent. That's awesome. That's a very thoughtful answer. I love that you were talking about like being inspired by even a library, like a physical place and setting. And then even in like your mock-up that you guys have on socials of like the Claude.com is like a phone resting on books, like almost in a library type setting. So I definitely feel that through line of like the craft and attention to detail of how it acts and how it feels. But no, that's incredible. And of course, you guys have your own tools for checking accessibility standards. That's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Good observation too. I'm glad you picked up on that, Chuck.
I like that a lot. I had some follow-up questions from the first question. You mentioned you were talking about sharing work on social media. Is Twitter, X, is that still the best place, or are there better platforms? Is it better to go to a more emerging platform like Bluesky? And then that's the first part of the question. We'll start with that.
A good question. I don't know. I don't know if there's. I feel like your mileage will vary across these different platforms based on your own little group of followers, your network. From my vantage point, X and Twitter have been growing in toxicity for me and my network. I feel there's a trend towards the negative and the critical. Not to say that criticism is bad. Criticism can be a wonderful tool, but I've actually found more luck on Instagram, but candidly, over the last couple of years, I've got a love-hate relationship. So I delete it and I'm off of it for weeks, and then I'll download it so I can say hi to some friends and share pictures of my dog, and then I delete it again. So, but I would say Instagram is where I go to first and foremost. I will say business-related things. I mean, LinkedIn, as much as I despise it, deeply despise LinkedIn, I often find just sharing what's going on there will lead to future business conversations. So
that's good. Well, especially as you go to such a business heavy place like LinkedIn and you're sharing creative work, you're sharing coding work. It's just like such a stark difference from everything else that's on there.
Yeah.
Again, it's like we were saying earlier, people are very much attracted
Yeah,
to
definitely. Yeah, and Bluesky is cool. I haven't really dabbled in it much. Hats off to them seeing a need and kind of taking the best parts of what was realized with Twitter and, you know, making it their own. I just haven't spent much time there.
This will be a little bit of a shameless plug, but I don't want to I don't want to expose anybody's contact info, right? But the CEO of Bluesky was in the Oklahoma community. She is connected.
Like nice. It's a small world after all.
So that's another fun little touch point.
That's cool.
And then a follow-up question to that. So for those platforms, Instagram and LinkedIn, how do you encourage people to use those platforms in a much more rich way than just sharing a link? That's the trend I feel like I see. People are pushed. They know they need to share things on these platforms, but then they just do a link and there's not even any rich context with the link. So how do you get the most out of those as opposed to just like plain text and a link like everybody else does?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple of thoughts. My first thought is it sort of depends on what you're sharing. Like if it's a website, great. That'll offer a sort of experience that folks can go and participate in. If it's a film or a short film or whatever, great, same thing. But maybe it isn't. Maybe it's a prototype. Maybe it's something static. Maybe it's a carousel of items. I think inherently we humans are lovers of stories. And I think if you can find ways to tell that story, and as I said earlier, sort of share your work, share your thinking. Why did you make it? What were some of the inspirations behind it? What did you learn along the way? These are details. Honestly, in some way or another, this is why we're all here. I think you're probably trying to learn something from me. Good luck. But I think we're all sort of looking for that. And I think if you can offer it with a sense of generosity, you'll find that people really appreciate it, and it goes a long way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it sounds like leaning into like what you're passionate about, figuring out how to display that.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think it's true.
I like that. I wanted to let's switch over back to the preloaded questions.
Sure.
So this one's going to be a fun one. Besides Claude, what's your favorite project you've ever worked on?
Oh, okay. My favorite project I've ever worked on. Shoot. Okay, there are two that come to mind. One was I was pretty young, and I was working at that same shop I mentioned earlier called Instrument. And for years, Instrument had a relationship with the chapter of TEDx out there in Portland, TEDx Portland, real original name. And they were on the hook to handle all of the collateral. And it was a pretty big chapter of TEDx Portland, so it would fill the Keller Auditorium. I don't know how many thousands of people would go, but it was pretty big.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of collateral. It was like, obviously you had a logo for like that year's subject or campaign title. There was, cards and posters, but there was a book of about 200 pages. There were short films, social, all sorts of things. And I was maybe a little naive and excited about the idea of working on that I jumped at it. And I was new at Instrument at the time. And so they were like, great, let's give it to this kid and see what he does. And to be clear, I was not alone. There was a wonderful director above me named Steve Denekis, great human, great creative director, and then a team of developers and fellow designers to help me see it through. But that was a particularly, I'm proud of that work because I learned at that age, like I can do things that scare me that I don't know how to do yet. I can solve problems that I've not solved before. You just have to try and give it your best shot, and you might just surprise yourself. And especially if you've got a team of folks that are there to support you and support the vision, it'll go a long way. And I remember, the book, I'd never designed a book before. I was a web designer and developer at the time. And so that was a real challenge. And it was like a couple hundred pages long, and every page had to be designed. It wasn't like, drop the text in and it just would sort of auto format the columns or whatever. It was like 200 compositions. But you know what? It was a treat and a joy. And when it was done, there was a sense of fulfillment, because as you would imagine with TED Talks, and you see folks from the community and the surrounding areas share inspiring stories, you get a sense that you played a small part in moving some hearts and making a difference in your little corner of the world. So that came to mind randomly. I mean, there are many other ones that I would be happy to talk about, but for whatever reason, that's the one that first came to mind.
Oh, and that kind of leads into the follow-up question. Besides Claude and besides that project, what is the project you're most proud of?
Yeah. Okay. There's one that comes to mind. A couple of years ago, I was rehired back to that same agency, Instrument, to handle their rebrand. And when a design agency does a rebrand, there's sort of the impetus to like really fucking send it, like go big,
It's like we can do this. Here's the proof. Yeah,
exactly. I'm sorry if I curse. I don't know if I can do that or not. So that's what we did. We were like, well, let's go for it. And so we decided we're going to create our own fonts for this. We're going to create custom logo types. We're going to create a new website with new case studies and new ways of photographing or documenting the work. And it was a very small team. A buddy of mine named Rodrigo Fuenzalida, we got together and we worked on the fonts together for really only a couple of months. And we decided along the way that with Instrument, that we were going to open source those fonts for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a developer. Instrument started as a development shop. Open source, as you all know, is crucial to even making this chat possible. We are standing on the shoulders of many giants that have shared their time and work generously with us to spin up new websites and apps as quickly as we can. It's pretty cool. And so it just made sense. We got to share this with the world as just like an act of generosity and paying it forward, just like others before us paid it forward. So we published it to Google Fonts, the brand rolled out, and it's been really cool over the last couple of years to see the fonts pop up on commercials and in portfolios and on business websites and for brand logos. I've got mixed feelings about this, but in January, the White House updated their website and they're using both of the fonts we designed.
Wow.
Again, mixed feelings. I'm not going to get into politics today, but I think that work I'm particularly proud of because it will likely be the work that outlives me and is used by more people than any other piece of work that I'll create, I would imagine.
Where can people find that font? Is it on GitHub?
It's on Google Fonts. It's hosted on GitHub, and you're more than welcome to actually download the font files that we created, make it your own, create your own fonts with it. It's totally up for grabs. There's another font. So there's a sans serif and a serif, and we have a monospace that we haven't released, but maybe one day I'll go back to Instrument and give him a hand finishing that.
If the video of this gets 1 million views, he will release it.
Yeah, there you go. And
what was the name of that? The font or the font?
Instrument Serif, Instrument Serif, and then Instrument Sans Serif are the names. Yeah,
that's so cool, and that's one of those things that just like it like that will actually like live. Like that's more. That's one of those things that's so special, and money can't really buy something like that. Where it's like just good work that people choose to like continue forward.
I hope so. I mean, the thing about working in public and sharing that sort of thing is you're open to criticism. So you have, in fact, recently we were interviewed by the Wall Street Journal about the font because they call them font connoisseurs, say that the font has gone too far. It's being used too much, which I found funny because I'm like, well, if you're a font connoisseur, then you clearly must know that there are many fonts to choose from and you can just choose a different font. Or better yet, make your own.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I like that.
Instrument Serif has had an incredible year. I was just about to say, Sam, to paint this like picture even broader, it's a very, very preeminent font in brand design, and widely recognized, widely known. So hats off to your team for really great craftsmanship. And there's always maybe a fifth or a quarter of my projects that I see or come across my desk are using that in some way and want to integrate it or already using it. It's very well regarded.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that, Chuck.
I love that. Cool. So here's a fun one. Here's getting more to the point of like one of the things that people are curious about. They always ask questions like this. How do you, Jordan, use generative systems or AI tools in your own work?
I definitely do use them. I think there's a couple of phases. Maybe I'll briefly describe those and then get into it a little. The research phase, development, and then a little bit in design. So with research, though, that's the biggest unlock for me. I mean, for most of my career, when a project would get kicked off, I would be handed a handful of documents talking about like the company's strategy, how they got here, their audience. I generally like to break down every creative problem into just a couple of variables. And I use a metaphor, which I'll tell you what that is now. The sender, receiver, medium, and message. Those are the four. If you can be knowledgeable about all four of those, you got a handle on the problem. The sender is me talking. The receiver is you. The medium is this voice chat, and the message is what I'm saying. But if a brand can understand those four, or a designer or a developer can understand those four, you really have all you need. The message is pretty key, and AI has really helped me understand what that message needs to be. It doesn't automate it. It really can't, but it can automate it enough to give me like a seed of an idea based on research. Because the one thing that LLMs are so good at doing is sifting through words and finding patterns, finding insights in those patterns. And so that's been incredibly helpful from a research perspective, and also from the perspective of writing. You know, as a designer, I have to spend a lot of time putting placeholder copy in places and trying new ideas out. And so I've trained a lot of either Claude projects or custom GPTs to, I don't want to say train it because it's not technically training, but you give it sort of guidance, a thorough prompt, but kind of a robust prompt with writing guidelines, voice and tone, etc., your own sort of proprietary data, and that'll influence it. So that's been really helpful. That's the research phase. The development phase, incredibly useful. I vibe coded. Well, vibe coding to me was enjoying a nice joint and being on my computer alone in a dark room. That's what vibe coding was for years. Now it's something else, and vibe coding's great, you know. And right now there's a lot of talk since, I guess, 2 days ago, Gemini 3 rolled out this like great one-shot model. And that's cool. I do that every now and again for quick sketches, but more often than not, I use it to solve very specific tasks that are repetitive and boring for me. My favorite use of it is, hey, I wrote this. Can you just double check it? And then also write the documentation for this particular component. That is a time saver for me, for sure. And then when it comes to design, oftentimes we'll create generative tools, because as wonderful as Figma is, and as many tools as they're adding to the Figma family, it's really still only good at drawing boxes. And some of the ideas that we have, you really want to figuratively break outside of that box, and maybe also literally break outside of the box. And so we'll create our own tools to help us do that. Maybe to create like non-uniform grid systems, or grid systems that don't have the same width columns programmatically, or maybe to create generative illustrations, or to create things that like InTouch Designer can generate motion guidelines and examples or whatever else. So Figma is wonderful. Our design tools are wonderful, but they have limits, and that's where generative AI is pretty helpful.
I like that. I now have a flip of that question.
Yeah.
What are the things that the tools people push, or the things people like recommend of like, this is the way, this will change your AI workflow that are just either noise, just completely noise, or just not there yet?
Oh yeah, good question. I don't know if I have a great answer for that. I every now and again, if I hear of a tool that comes up enough, I'll give it a shot with AI. But more often than not, they're all sort of regurgitating the same ideas because they're all using the same models under the hood. So they face the same sorts of limits. So really the only difference is how can folks create interfaces that are easier to use? And maybe they can create some features that sort of come at it from a slightly different perspective. So at this point, I can't say that I'm experimenting much with sort of like middleman companies that are taking models and then creating their own UI on top of it. I'm more interested in just going right to the source and creating my stuff from there. I know that, what was it? Figma just purchased, was it Weave? Is that what it was called? I'm sure we'll be seeing and hearing quite a bit more from Figma over the next year or two in that space with Figma Make and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, Sam, but that's the best I got there.
I wanted to go on to another question. Dwight had a question. I
have a question about AI. Unless you're still like on AI, just a quick like one hitter. What's been the coolest thing that you one-shotted with AI?
The coolest thing I one-shotted with AI. Okay, good question.
If anything like has surprised you, if nothing has impressed you, then that's okay.
No. I'm always impressed with AI, but I don't really have much luck with one-shots. I find that some of the things I ask, it requires a bit of a back and forth for it to like really kind of see what I'm trying to describe. And maybe that's failure on my part for not being a great prompt writer, but let me think here for a moment. Okay, I would say I needed a tool, a very simple, crude tool to compare two different typefaces at the same time so I could evaluate the same character, like capital A's, B's, C's, etc. So I could just evaluate what are sort of the differences, broadly speaking. So I could just like flip through it. And it did that in a matter of, I don't know, 45 seconds or something. And that would have taken me probably about 3 hours to spin it up to my liking. And the reality is like, I probably would have done a better job. It would have looked better, but it saved me 3 hours and it did the job, and that was not going to be a public facing tool or anything. So I'd say little things like that. That's not as spectacular as some of the things you could probably find on X, where people are, showing crazy WebGL experiences that have been one shot, but that's what comes to my mind.
I'm not impressed by a lot of stuff I see on X, so I appreciate that, Chap.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Dwight, you're up.
Hi, Dwight.
Oh yeah. Hey, and I put it in the chat already. But what I liked your what you were saying earlier about kind of sharing your work and everything like that. Just kind of high level, what advice would you give to somebody that's just starting out, how to promote themselves and how to build their brand?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Well, I'll share what I did, which, as I mentioned, I did spend a lot of time first just to like get decent enough to do anything. Once I dropped out of college, I was faced with the challenge of like, I have to create some marketable skills. And to do that, I really need to have some sort of understanding around what I want to do and how these designers are doing it. And so what I would do is I would study some designers' work that I really responded to. And in my case, there was designers in like the 50s and 60s, Emil Reuter, Armin Hoffman, a number of others. And what I would do, I would recreate their compositions just to a pixel, just so I could start to understand, technically speaking, what are they doing here? And I would start to ask myself questions like, how are they dealing with space, typography, line height, the nitty gritty? And this is just an example. You can sort of apply it to your own medium, whatever that is, if it's development. But spending a lot of time just kind of occupying, I think, their point of view. And then along the way, I started finding my own point of view from theirs. Like, oh, I like that they do that, but this seems kind of boring or repetitive, or it feels old, or this or that. I started having my own opinions. I sort of was like becoming, I was awakening in some weird way. And from there, that's when I started coming up with my own ideas of like, oh, I want to make this. And that's when I started sharing my work and sharing my thoughts and process behind it. And that sort of became a part of my brand, if you will, was just learning in public. And then the biggest challenge for me, and I don't know if you can relate, Dwight, or anybody else, making my own portfolio site. It's hell.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It's the worst. I'm the worst client for myself, you know. But do that and take it seriously. Just show up. Just be diligent and do it. There's a great quote by, well, Picasso, who was a contentious figure, but he said, Muse, Lady Muse, will come to you. She'll come to you, but she has to find you working. Just show up, be diligent, chip away at it, and you'll find inspiration. Muse will pop up. And if you can just stay at it, create that website as like a expression of your brand, whatever that might be. If you're somebody who learns in public, if you're somebody who is just kind of quietly chipping away, if you're a developer or designer, whatever, make that website an honest expression of who you are and what you do. And I think it will pay dividends. I hope that's helpful, Dwight.
Yeah, it is. That is.
Yeah.
And then you go ahead with the other one, Sam.
Oh, I was gonna say, like Jordan, you give it a creative example, but that also applies to like if somebody's building with AWS, just like Dwight runs the Tulsa AWS group. So it's like you want to get some experience and you're just starting out. A YouTube channel like Byte Go, where he breaks down the exact system design of an app like Instagram, and then try to put that together. Try to put together a Terraform file to build your own Instagram, and just play with it and see if you can stand it up and launch it.
Exactly.
Same concept. Having that ready and having that on a GitHub repo ready to go. That's you're gonna learn a ton.
Yeah, that's a great example. It's a great example.
Yep.
Also, Dwight, love AWS.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the big thing is, hey, do a project and put it out there. So that's a big thing for cloud architects. My other question was, and I've been asking a lot of different people this question, but for somebody just starting out learning AI, what would you recommend? Because there's a lot of courses out there that aren't too good. So what would you recommend
for learning AI? Now, are you thinking like what model would I start with?
Just model prompting, stuff like that. Yeah, just general.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I did. Well, at the time, chat was the only one that really was catching my attention whenever it first came to market. And so I spent a good bit of time trying to figure out how to write prompts. And what I would do is I would go to YouTube and obviously watch stupid videos, but like how to write prompts. And eventually that led me down a path of creating prompt writers to write prompts for you that are GPTs. It's very meta. So using AI to prompt AI. And honestly, that's been sort of a revolutionary breakthrough for my own use of the tools. But I would just get started by, if you have a project, just incorporate it. And I would start by, this is what I do. I'll go on a walk and I'll record either a voice memo or I'll just record with my microphone and I'll just talk like I'm talking to a collaborator or like I'm talking to my therapist about design or whatever it is, and say, I've got this idea. I'm thinking about using this particular tech stack. I want to learn this or that along the way. And this is the sort of the problem I want to solve. This is a crude example. And then I'll say, I want you to take a minute or two to consider what I've said. I want you to poke holes in my logic here. What sorts of problems do you think I'm going to run into? Et cetera, et cetera. And then it'll come back to me really as a sort of a collaborative narrative. It'll offer counterpoints, considerations, these sorts of things. And that's incredibly helpful. It gives me a more robust understanding to start from. And then from there, inevitably, as I'm starting to build that project out, more questions will pop up. And maybe I'll come back to Claude or whatever tool I'm using and be like, oh, remember that thing we were building? Let's solve this specific problem within that ecosystem. So that's how I would encourage folks to use it, is just get into it. You don't need to be an expert. Just download it and go. And you'll learn along the way. And also, YouTube is a great resource for finding best practices and whatnot if you're curious about nerding out in that way.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Hope that's helpful.
That's so cool. Well, I think I want to open up just for any more questions. Like from I don't believe Marcos or Tran got to go. You guys have any more questions? And then if not, I got some closing stuff. It sounds like we are good.
I'm curious on a
Go ahead.
on a personal level,
Mhm.
creatively, what's inspired you this year from books you've read or music you've heard or movies you've seen?
Okay, great question. A year ago, I went to Japan for the first time.
Cool.
And I was deeply inspired by the architecture, the food, the people. And since then, I've spent a lot of time reading about Japanese design philosophy, which I'm Norwegian, like painfully Norwegian. My last name is Egstad, for crying out loud. Okay. And I've come to learn that the Scandinavian, like my heritage, the Scandinavian design sensibility is actually, it overlaps with the Japanese design philosophy quite a bit. There's sort of this drive for, or desire for cleanliness and simplicity, minimalism, if you want to call it that. But also there's this desire for play, a little bit of humanity in there too. It's not just brutal, it's not like a Dieter Rams Braun design, as beautiful as those are, not to credit. I love that stuff. Would gladly own any of it. But there's a sense of it being a little bit cold and clinical, which is why they use that stuff in Severance, for example, because it feels sort of sterile. And there is a beauty to that. So again, not a criticism, just commenting on that. But I like the sense of a little bit of quirk. I like a little humanity in there. I like being surprised. I like things that maybe make sense rationally, but they catch you off guard in designs and in compositions, in apps. So I'm very inspired by that at the moment, and that's taken on different things. One of my favorite books I keep going back to is a book called Wabi-sabi. It's very abstract. It's sort of a Japanese philosophy that was rooted in tea ceremonies, and they would use basically old, what we would consider ugly, tarnished teacups and receptacles to serve tea, because there was sort of this irony of like exquisite, flavorful tea served in these like ridiculous looking objects. And then I'm not going to spoil the ending. It's a short read. Pick up the book. It's so good. It'll make you get all moody. You'll be in the feels for a day or two after you read it. But that immediately comes to mind. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, super cool.
That's good. I was going to say, there's a reason that one of the companies that Apple likes to draw inspiration for is Nintendo.
Oh yeah, Nintendo is excellent at what I'm describing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're kind of the experts at it. And Lego's up there for me.
Yep.
Teenage Engineering, similar but different. Sense of play, but a sense of order also. It's hard to find that balance, but there are companies that do it really well.
They do some special jobs. Well, I think we can go ahead and roll up and maybe end a little early here. Give you guys back your 7 minutes. I do want to announce the next speaker. We've got a special secret data science speaker from OKC. We are getting ready to announce, and so be ready for that. And then keep your eyes peeled on the Techloma channels. And then also we're going to have Jordan coming back, where we're going to talk about perceptual color spaces for 3 hours. That'll be a banger. So the things I wanted to plug, I wanted to thank the Techloma members for like making this stuff happen. Techloma is we don't pay board members, we don't pay volunteers, but you still got to pay for insurance on this stuff. So like making this happen and make like all of these AMAs, this stuff happens because of our like people like our Techloma members. So I just want to appreciate those. And if you guys are looking for some leveling up resources, we're going to share some links of what Jordan talked about. But also be sure to check out Dwight's group, Tulsa AWS, Oklahoma AI group, both in OKC and Tulsa, as well as OK Coders program, where we're getting ready to include some more AI curriculum for you guys. That's kind of like a more authentic and useful and unique AI content. with that said, I want to thank Jordan for coming on. He, you know, he agreed to do this, and it's like he can do other things, and it's very generous for him to like spend this time with us. So if you want to, feel free to send him some Cash Apps or Venmos. He also accepts Apple Pay. Just some like tips for doing this, and then we'll have the links for like some info about Jordan and some more details about what he talked about in the Slack thread for this on the events channel. With that said, go outside, touch some grass. It's a little rainy today in Oklahoma, but maybe take a walk once the rain lets up. Maybe we might have a very beautiful sunset in store for us today. So just get some of that fresh air and then take care of each other. With that said, I'm going to send you guys, in the words of Jordan, and I'll let you guys get back to fun Oklahoma things. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks for having
See
me.
ya. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Don't send me money. Don't do that. Keep your money. Have a good one.
Bye.